All right, Nothing Man here. I got a request to give an opinion piece on uh, the hot topic, popular topic of minimum wage and the potential for a minimum wage hike. So I'm going to try and give it to you quick in a nutshell. The fellow that asked me to do that made a really good point, and I want to put that out there that there is no right answer. There is no one right answer. I think there's going to be a lot of agreement and disagreement on this particular topic because it means something to different people. Uh, those of you that know me, that have followed anything that I've said as of late, knows that there's one common theme when it comes to economics, and that is corporate greed. The problem that we're dealing with is corporate greed. 100% corporate greed. We can address that problem. We can address so many of the issues that the working class, particularly, currently suffers. So I'll put that out there. In the interest of keeping this video a little more brief, I would say that minimum wage, as it stands, the legislature that's moving in an attempt to raise it to $15 an hour is going to create a lot of problems. I like some of the problems that it's creating because it's going to force other people who are making around $15 an hour now in more skilled, more laborious positions. It's going to force them to look at the situation and see, hey, we're not really being fairly compensated either, which is a fact. However, I think that sudden increases in minimum wage and large, because this is more than doubling, going from, what is it, I think the current minimum wage is 7.25 to 15 is more than double minimum wage. It's going to create a lot of problems. And to get back to my point about corporate greed, it's going to create problems for the working class, and it's not going to create a whole lot of problems for the elite class. So rest assured that your legislators, your lawmakers, your elected officials are pushing the corporate agenda. It's not going to help us. So that is my opinion on that matter. I would say that in a nutshell, do we need a minimum wage? Under current conditions, absolutely. I remember as a young kid, I used to hate minimum wage jobs because to me it said I would pay you less if I could. And I do know that I've worked for employers who would have paid less if they could. That's really not a good way to, it's not a good thing. It's not a good mindset to have when you're trying to work for somebody. In a perfect world, an employee would go looking for a job. A person would go looking for a job. They would be appreciative of a job that was extended to them, an employment offer, and they would want to go in and do the absolute best job that they could. They would not only be investing in themselves, they'd be investing in their employer. In that perfect scenario, everything works great. That's not the scenario we have today. What we have today is people can't really even live humbly. There's no such thing anymore. Like, you have to drive, you have to hit the ground running, you have to grind just to get by. Again, I believe that to be rooted in corporate greed. So do we need a minimum wage? I think under current circumstances, absolutely. There needs to be some protection for the working class, even those what do they call them, entry level, bottom level jobs. I mean, one of the things I've always felt a little bit angry for those people, not about, for those people, is when you say that, oh, that's just a burger flipper, that's just a gas pumper. Clearly there's a need for that service. So you're completely dismissing the efforts of those people, and that sucks. That's shitty. That's shitty of you to do. I've been guilty of it, but we do need to start considering that. This proposed minimum wage hike is going to crush small business. Small business is going to have to, they're going to be forced into a position where they're either going to have to get smaller or fold up shop. completely. Bigger companies are not going to suffer. They're going to put in those automated kiosks, which, if as an aside topic here, I want to encourage each and every one of you. Again, I'm not claiming to be, I'm not claiming to have the right answer, but I cannot bring myself to use one of those kiosks. If I were to go into a shopping center and that was my only option, I would find another shopping center. Those people are refusing to put people to work for their own benefit. That's part of the problem, okay? So stop doing that. That's my opinion. Minimum wage. A higher minimum wage sounds good to those people who are making minimum wage. When you think about the people who are making a little bit more than $15 an hour, and I know there's a lot of them here in central rural Pennsylvania, and I'm just assuming that it's the same in a lot of other rural settings, that there's a lot of, I would say that, some of the best jobs in the area are still paying under $20 an hour. Man, I've been across this country, and I can tell you right now that is subpar. I worked for a while in steel fab. Never went to school, taught myself, welding and machining, and did it here in central Pennsylvania for less than $10 an hour. Moved to South Carolina, and an unskilled laborer in a steel fab shop was making $18 an hour in the 90s for sharpening drill bits. That was his responsibility. The machinists and the welders all made upwards to $30 an hour, around that ballparkish area. So central Pennsylvania, rural America, I believe, is definitely behind the gun, which is something else you have to keep in mind when it comes to economics, is that, rural America has always been choked, has always been starved, for the good and the bad. We don't see, a lot of the pop culture doesn't really impact us right away. I remember when I worked in human services and substance abuse, we didn't see the opiate epidemic. We didn't see any of that stuff until many years later. The very reason I decided to settle in central Pennsylvania is because it's not a bad place to raise your kids. The crime rate, by and large, is lower. Has it raised? Has it increased over the years? Absolutely. But that's me nutshelling the whole situation, that rural America has its charm, has its benefits, but we are still choked and starved. That we don't pay any less taxes. Okay, keep that in mind. So what it really comes down to is cost of living. Our cost of living is not supported as the rest of the nation is. We're going to continue paying. We're going to continue working. And to be honest with you, I've lived, again, all over this country, and the people in rural America are some of the hardest working people. And that's something to be proud of, absolutely. And the work ethic and the drive and the pride that goes into that, there's nothing wrong with that at all, until it comes down to you looking down upon people below you, okay? And also, when your work ethic, I see this a lot, when your work ethic is, well, I'm just going to keep on driving because that's the way I was trained, that's the way I was taught, that's the way I was conditioned from birth, and I was too. I have been, and I'm going to continue to be, but I'm not going to sit quietly any longer. The bottom line is that it comes down to corporate greed. Over the last 25 to 30 years, working for a living has become harder and harder and harder, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason why my grandparents were able to raise, both sets, maternal, paternal, grandparents were able to raise a family of 6 children, husband, wife, and 6 children, on the income of my grandfather, on both sides. They lived the American dream, bought a home, bought a couple homes, and they were able to do it off of one man's effort. Today, you can't do that, and you can barely even get by with the 2 incomes that most households have. There's a reason for that, and it is all tied into it. Again, I'm not an economics major or a expert, but I mean, it really doesn't take much to take a look at the common sense aspect of everything. So the point of the matter is do we need a minimum wage? What's it going to do? What's the current legislation going to do? It's going to mess up a lot of shit, but it's going to make fat cats fatter. So my opinion is, my opinion is the same as it is on a lot of different issues, a lot of different hot topics that we're facing in this country right now. And that is, it's going to come down to us, those of us that are proud, that are pushing, that are hard workers, have the ethics and everything. That's fine, that's great. it's time for us to apply that to getting things right, not just taking care of ourselves. Because the reality of it is we're always going to take care of ourselves. We're very resilient people. But we're also, if we're not getting to a point yet where we're starting to look and see that shit's just getting more and more fucked up, it's getting more and more difficult. What are we leaving behind for our kids? I mean, I know my parents worried about that, and this is where I'm sitting. I'm worried about that. My two oldest kids are adults and into the working world, and I'm seeing that. I have a little one coming along. I got grandkids that are starting to show up in my life, and as big of a blessing and as much joy as that brings to me, I'm scared to fucking death what this nation is going to have for them. So I'm starting to look at it as, you know what, the working class really need to start putting digging our heels in against our government and against corporate greed. That's the answer that I have for you. Do we need a minimum wage? I think right now, under the current circumstances, absolutely. This country is so far out of whack that we cannot work on just the idea that labor is going to be fairly rewarded. That's just not in our system anymore. We may be able to get it back if we can dig in hard enough. I don't know, but really what it's going to come down to is going to come down to me and you. Stop using those kiosks. Start getting involved in your local and even your state and federal politics. Let them know what you're thinking, because they're going to keep doing what they do. They're going to keep preserving their way of life, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, we are absolutely at a point in time where our government is eating us. They are cannibalizing us. So keep that in mind, and I think you'll find the answer to just about every problem that we face socially in this nation. The legislation moving through on the minimum wage hike is going to mess shit up in a bad way. The only good that could potentially come out of it is that, like I said, that middle class, that's the working class. It's funny because I can't even really, with a straight face, say working class and middle class in the same sentence, because so many of the working class are actually still right at or even below the poverty line, which is a whole new shame. Not a new shame, but a whole different shame that I think a lot of people turn a blind eye towards. But the legislation moving through on the minimum wage hike is going to mess up a lot of things. You're going to see even more small businesses folding up. And like I said, the fat cats are going to keep getting fatter. That's just the nature of it. So really the only good thing that can come out of this is that the working class notices how it's always been this way, but notices how it's always going to fall on our shoulders. It's always going to, the brunt of the responsibility socially is that we're going to carry the load for our country. We're going to take a load out of our paychecks and give it to our representatives to do with and to divvy out and hopefully, balance things out. But that's not what's happening. What they're taking our tax dollars is they're supporting big business, big tech, big pharma, just all these different things that are actually dipping further into our pockets and not helping us. Hopefully the good thing that'll happen from this, because eventually we will see a significant, even if it's not this time or even any time in the near future, we are going to see a significant minimum wage hike. The bigger the hike, the bigger the problem. The faster it comes is also going to make the problem bigger. But like I said, really, I think if you want my bare bones opinion on it, I think that it's going to be a whole lot of bad stuff. It's going to be worse for the working class, and I think that the only good that's going to come out of it is for that working class to finally look up and say, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm always going to get by, but I'm tired of doing it for other people. And that's not to say that, the working class shouldn't find merit in, social welfare programs, because there are people that need it. What we need to become more aware of is the corporate welfare programs that are very real, and that a significant and a quick minimum wage hike really only goes to benefit those people. So that's my opinion. The answer is there is no easy answer. I might be able to give a better answer if I had a little bit more knowledge and education on economics. But that's it in a nutshell from layman standpoint. It's really not that hard to see the problems that we're dealing with, and it's really not that hard to see that just about everything that comes down the pipe falls on our shoulders and does nothing more than to benefit the fat cats. So I'm sorry that that's a common trend in conversation with me, but that's just the way I see it.